Time to stack heels. First thing I do is make a mark as to where I want my heel bases to begin. And once I get them marked up and I'm happy with the way they look, I take my back scratcher. I'll check this thing out. Here's my back scratcher, sharp as could be. I'm gonna use my back scratcher and I am going to scuff up the bottom of this leather. You can see how scuffed up all this is. I've got it all scratched up nice and pretty all the way around, all the way up to the edge, so that when I put glue on this and I stick my first layer down, it is going to adhere very, very well. Stay tuned for the first layer. Okay, here is my first heel layer. I like to cut this V notch out in the front. Essentially that will cup around the shank area. Since we've got that big hump in the shank, you got to remove a lot of material, and this just takes a lot of that work out. Now, one thing I have learned, thanks to another boot maker, which I learned a ton of stuff from a bunch of the other guys, after cutting my V-notch, I actually grind out this other side and take a bunch of material out and feather this down, so that when I lay this inside of my boot, a bunch of my work will already be done for me. And so right now I'm going to get a coat of glue on these and on the soles, and then I will be back to show you how they look once attached. Got a coat of glue on. Check this pair of boots out that I'm working on at the same time. Aren't those cool? So you saw the coat of glue on the heel layer, and there's the glue on the soles. And so I'm going to give that about 20 minutes or so, and then I am going to hammer everything down. Got both layers, the first layers, glued, hammered down. Got everything nice and tight all the way around the edges, so everything's looking really, really nice. And also got a row of pegs in. Every single layer that I put on will get at least one row. As I get a little bit further in and get to about my third layer or so, I will begin doing 2 rows. Don't know if there's really a reason why I do or don't, but that's what I like to do. Now remember, I showed y'all I like to cut this V out of that first layer because there is this, we have this arch area that is pretty domed, and you can see where that V notch is. It kind of cups around it to reduce some of my work a little bit later. And so I got all this semi-flat, but what I am going to do now is I'm going to take these to my finisher and I am going to sand these as flat as I possibly can before I add my second layer. So I spent about 2 minutes over on my finisher sanding on these. Since I took that notch out and ground them before I put these on, it doesn't take very long for me to get these things as close to level as I possibly can, which on the first layer, it's never going to be perfectly flat. There's no possible way. I just try to get them as close to as flat as I possibly can, so that when I do my next layer, I will be able to get it even more flattened out. You can tell I still have this hump in my center. I am not going to remove a bunch of my sole leather though, because I don't want to mess with the integrity of my sole. I want to keep as much material as I possibly can in that sole. And so when I add my next layer, I will be able to remove a little more material in that center section on that second layer and get things flattened out a little bit nicer. But that's layer number 1. So next thing is to glue another layer, attach another layer, peg them, and sand them again. And every time you add a layer, you are just trying to make things flatter and flatter until you get to the point that everything is nice and flat, so that when you put your rubber on, your boot sits nice and flat and you got a happy customer. I love making these videos. Y'all, I just talked to myself for a good minute and a half because I had it on photo instead of video. Oh my gosh. Okay, so here's here's layer number 2, and you will notice I've already got it pegged. Got both of them pegged on and hammered down, and I've already got them sanded. So usually by the time I get to layer number 2 and I get them all sanded out, the back 2/3 or so is going to be relatively flat. Looking really, really nice. But the first third, you'll notice I still have this hump. That's okay, we'll take care of that. Usually by the 3rd layer, I will have this completely flattened out. And so once the 3rd layer is done, it's just a matter of adding more layers until everything is built up to the height that I want it to be. So you'll notice on the 2nd layer, I have removed as much material as I possibly can in that center section, almost to the point that it is paper thin, just making sure that I don't hit the bottom of my sole, because I don't want to mess up the finish that I've already done on here. 2nd layer looking really, really nice and pretty. Both of them are done, looking good. And so I will go ahead and I'm gonna rough these up just a smidge, because my sander kind of burnt my leather instead of sanding is the way I wanted. It's time to replace sandpaper, I guess. So I'm gonna rough these up and get another coat of glue on these and another coat of glue on those 2 layers that I've already sanded and got prepped. Layer number 4 glued up. Layer number 3 sanded, pegged, glued. Just waiting on glue to dry. And it's about as boring as waiting on paint to dry. But y'all can see 3 layers. And that 3rd layer got it all sanded and relatively flat at this point. And so from here on out, all I am doing is adding layers to get to that end desired heel height. So once I get the 4th on, I should only have 1, possibly 2 more layers to go before I add my rubber. And we'll have a set of heel is all finished up and ready to go. All right, got it all stacked. Took 5 layers to get it all nice and even, nice and happy. Side seam straight up and down, relatively speaking. And so now I've got this boot sitting on top of what I use for my heel rubber. And what I'm gonna do is mark my heel breast in order to know where to cut my breast. So I've got this thing sitting flat. I'm gonna try and do this one-handed, or see if I can prop my camera up to where it can be seen. Yeah, like that, that'll work. I've got this cool little template that I drew up that I use on every single pair of boots that I build, that is marked as my heel breast. I've got it sitting flat, so I will get the exact same angle every single time. I'll come in here and draw that angle out. So I will cut off all of this excess up front and make that a really, really nice straight edge. So that's that side. Take my boot, flip it around, put it on top of that heel rubber, set my heel breast template in front again, and get it lined up where I want it to be sitting, and mark it again. So now I've got both of my sides marked up. I can take my blade to it and cut it. So hang on, and I'll get you moved over to where I'll cut these. All right, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm ready to cut my heel breast. I've got my line marked out. I've got a line across the top. Got a line on this side. Everything's nice and pretty. Looking from here to here and here to here, everything looks nice and equal. I'm happy with the way this thing looks. I just got to cut off what does not need to be there. So what I like to use, which there's going to be boot makers that tell me I'm doing this wrong, is what it is. This is the way I like to do it. If you don't like it, go back to your shop and go and do what you like to do. I think I just lost my view. Oh, it still looks okay. All right. Sorry if you're looking at my crotch. Okay, so this is my blade from my splitter. It is extremely sharp. All that is really important when you're doing this is making sure you have an extremely sharp blade that is fairly rigid. I have another tool that I bought to do this that other makers use. I don't like it. I like this blade. And so what I'll do is I'm going to come up on top and sit right on top of my line that I had drawn. And I am going to follow this edge, and I'm going to come down at an angle and let this blade slice in to that heel. Now you'll notice I've only gone in essentially to that corner. That's perfectly fine. I'm gonna turn my boot around and I'm gonna go the other direction now. I'm gonna follow my line, always making sure to follow that line. Follow my line across, and then I am going to follow that line down. Okay, once again, kind of just cutting that corner. I don't cut corners very often, but this is one time you need to cut corners. At least this is the way I do it. And then I'm just going to continue to rock my way back and forth, just making sure I don't cut into my sole. And so every time that I rock from one end to the other, I am progressively cutting a little bit more of this heel breast away. And so you can see all this excess is starting to separate. It's coming loose, looking really pretty. I'm going to continue to work my way down until, oh, look, we're starting to separate. Cool. I'm just hanging on this side, so I'm going to turn around and I'm just going to work on this side. Just lightly pressing, nothing crazy. I don't want to cut into my sole. Inevitably, you're going to. It's just part of it, but I want it to be the least amount possible. I'm hanging on one little corner. I'm going to come in and give it just a little pressure and pop it loose. And voila, there's a heel breast. Looking good. So now I will just move over to my other boot and cut it and go on from there.